Welcome in to Run the League. I'm Grayson Grunhafer, and let's get into some stardom sit-em for Week 3 of the NFL season. All right, guys, so it's Week 3. I know everyone's trying to get back on track in the win column for their fantasy football league or continuing some success that hopefully I've been able to help with at least some. I know it can be tricky all season long when you see various posts of guys who can be start and sit guys, but hopefully this has been a little bit insightful. So let's get going with Week 3. My first start of the week at the quarterback position is Jalen Hurts. This has been a guy who I've talked about ad nauseum, I think, throughout the season. And the reason for it is just simply I thought he was going to be a breakout. And so far, I think he has been. I mean, he's really lived up to the bill. Right now, QB 8 on the year. He's looked really, really good. And I think he's kind of proven that when you have a running quarterback, it kind of makes up for deficiencies that you may have in the past game. So Week 1, he really showed that he's come a long way throwing the football, and especially taking care of the football. I think that's been one of his biggest problems since coming into the league is just, can he avoid turnovers and can he move his team down the field efficiently? Last week, did not work out that way. Did not throw the ball very well, was 12 of 23 for 190 yards. Not great. Did not throw a touchdown, did not look awesome. But you know what he did do? He added 82 yards and a touchdown on the ground, which saved his fantasy season and gave you a top 10 quarterback finish, which is pretty incredible. And that's what I think he'll continue to do throughout the season, even in bad matchups. But this week, not a bad matchup. He gets to take on the Dallas Cowboys. I know it's at Dallas, but it's Monday Night Football. I think that he's got an opportunity to have a monster game, a rebound game from last week. And I've been very impressed with what he's done. I've been impressed with the Eagles as a whole. I think they're a pretty decent football team. And this is a division matchup, a rivalry matchup. And so I think Jalen Hurts is going to have a nice game. I think he'll rebound well. I also think Dak is going to be able to put up some numbers. I know that he's had a good year so far. And so I do think they'll score some points, which will also help Jalen Hurts because they're going to have to keep up on the scoreboard as well. So he's my first start of the week. The other one is Teddy Bridgewater. Another really good start this week. He's been very solid so far to start the year. Top 12 quarterback so far, but he gets the Jets this week, which is just a great matchup. And on the flip side, the Broncos really have struggled to run the football consistently. And so, therefore, they're pretty much relying on Teddy to throw the football. I'm expecting big things out of him, big things out of Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, Tim Patrick, just a lot of options right now, even with Jerry Jeudy out. And so I think Teddy's a pretty good start. And if you're kind of questioning, okay, who could I start Teddy over? Well, here are a couple guys I would start Teddy over. Ryan Tannehill, Aaron Rodgers, surprisingly, I know, Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones, even though they have good matchups, Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield, I would start him over all of them. I think he's going to have a really nice week. If you're talking about the top 10 guys, no, I'm not going to start him over those guys, but the guys I named are kind of middling. They're kind of in that 11 to 14 range of quarterback ranking, so I would start Teddy over all of those guys. My start of the week at the quarterback position, though, is Justin Herbert. He's pretty much an automatic start, but I think people are kind of questioning things with him to start the season, which makes sense. I mean, he's been the quarterback 26 and the quarterback 21 the first 2 weeks. But on the flip side, I think that he's missed some opportunities that he will start to take advantage of. He plays the Chiefs this week. The Chiefs did not look great against the Ravens defensively. So I think Herbert will have some room to put up some numbers. But the main thing is I think the Chiefs are going to win this game pretty big. And therefore, I think Herbert's going to have to throw the ball a ton. And therefore, I think there's going to be a ton of points for him and his wide receivers in this matchup. My sits of the week for the quarterback position, Joe Burrow at Pittsburgh. I just have really not liked what I've seen so far from Joe Burrow. He was quarterback 18 the first week, quarterback 25 this past week. But if you really watch the game against the Bears this past week, he scored both of those touchdowns in, I know the Bears only had 20 points, but it was garbage time. And so during the actual course of the game, the flows of the game, the Bengals are trying to run the football. which I understand. They want to keep their defense off the field. They want to control time of possession a little bit. But I think it's hurting Joe Burrow significantly. And so therefore, I'm a little worried at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is coming off of a game where they didn't play very well defensively against the Raiders. I think they're looking for a bounce back, and I think they'll probably get one against Joe Burrow. My second sit of the week, and this is a bit of a surprising one, but San Francisco, the 49ers, looked a lot better against Jalen Hurts this past week, and therefore I think they're going to continue to do that a little bit against Aaron Rodgers. I know the Packers look good, but it was against Detroit. I think Rodgers will have some success, but I'm not a huge fan of him this week. I'm trying to stay away from him. I think the 49ers still have a pretty capable defense, and so if I don't have to play Rodgers, I won't. I'm just a little concerned. Obviously, if he's your only option, you still kind of got to go in with the confidence that there's a high ceiling there, but I'm just saying I have concerns. So I think I'm going to stay away from Aaron Rodgers if possible. At the running back position, let's start with the Indianapolis Colts running back, Jonathan Taylor. He's been extremely disappointing to start the year. I totally understand that. I know the first week of the season, he kind of scored in a weird way because it was receptions as opposed to really showing off his running ability, which is something that has been surprising. He hasn't really shown that he can be a dominant force in these first two games, but he was RB11 week 1, RB42 last week. Shocking. He had 15 carries for 51 yards. But you know who it was against? How about the Rams? The Rams are a very good team. Carson Wentz got hurt in the game. It kind of took away their whole offense. And when you're playing a team like the Rams, you simply cannot lose your quarterback. They're too good of a defense. So, yes, he struggled. And I totally understand that. But now he gets a get-right game against a division foe in the Tennessee Titans, and I don't really care who the quarterback is, whether it's Jacob Eason or Carson Wentz. I think Jonathan Taylor is going to be a huge part of the game plan. I think they will have success running the football regardless of who the quarterback is. And I also think if it's Eason or Wentz, there will be opportunities for checkdowns and for him to be a factor in the receiving game like he was in week 1. The Titans giving up 38 points and 33 points in the first 2 weeks. I don't think it matters who the quarterback is. I think the Colts will be able to move the ball at least some, preferably with Wentz. I think they'll move it more, but even with Eason, I think they'll get the ball to Jonathan Taylor and try to allow him to make plays, whether it's in space or in between the tackles. I really like Jonathan Taylor this week. Do not sit him just because of what he did this past weekend and just because of concerns with Carson Wentz. Second guy I like, the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah, they ran the ball well. They ran the ball well this past week. Latavius Murray is showing that he can still get into the end zone. But the guy I'm highlighting is Tyson Williams. He had 13 carries for 77 yards. He's got 5 catches through the first 2 games of the season. So he's showing that he can at least be somewhat of a factor there. But the bigger factor is they're playing the Detroit Lions, and they're coming off a game where Lamar Jackson had to run the ball way too much. And I don't think they want that to be a trend, especially in games that they should win comfortably. This is kind of going to be a common theme because I'm going to talk about one of his pass catchers as well this week. But I think the goal is going to be keep Lamar Jackson in the pocket this week. Don't have him running around too much. And hand the ball off to Tyson Williams, Latavius Murray, and just kind of move the ball in that way. And so I think Tyson's due for a big one. I think he'll score a touchdown this week. I think there's a chance he has 100 yards rushing against a really bad Lions defense. So Tyson Williams, play him if you can. I think he's a very good player. I know he didn't put up huge fantasy points this past week, but I'm expecting him to look a lot better going forward. My start of the week at the running back position is a guy who's off to a really bad start, and it's really not surprising. Coming into the year, Saquon Barkley had some issues with injuries, and you kind of knew that they would take their time, the Giants that is, with getting him back into kind of where they want him to be as far as targets and receptions and how many carries they're going to give him. So the first week of the year, running back 53. Second week of the year, RB 31. There's a trend coming. And the adage that you're seeing with targets, he got 15 touches this week, 69 yards. If he gets 15 touches against Atlanta, he's going to be a perfectly fine play. He'll be a top 15 running back, in my opinion, but I think he'll get more touches than that. I think this is a must-win for the Giants, and so therefore I think they're going to give him the football. They're going to rely on their bell cow running back, and coming off of a long week since they played on Thursday, I think this is the perfect opportunity for Saquon to come out, put up 2 scores, put up that top 5 running back performance that everyone's been waiting on, and against Atlanta, it couldn't come at a better time. So, yeah, I think Saquon is going to have a huge week. He's my start of the week at the running back position. As far as sits go, I have 3 names that I'm avoiding this week. The first is Darrell Henderson, the running back for the Rams, but I'm also avoiding Sony Michel if Henderson is unable to play this week, which seems somewhat likely, is honestly what the Rams should do. They're going up against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And let's be honest, nobody really is running on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year or last year for that matter. They are a very, very stout defense, and therefore I don't really want to play running backs against them unless they're high-volume pass catchers, which Henderson and Michel are not. They're in between the tackle guys, and so therefore I'm staying away from them. I want no part of that. And we'll see on Henderson, but if I'm the Rams, I would sit him with that rib injury. There's just really no point in this matchup. You're going to be relying on Matthew Stafford regardless. So I think stay away from the Rams backfield this week. My second name, Mike Davis. It's kind of murky in Atlanta with Cordarrelle Patterson. I'm just a little concerned with how they're using their running backs right now. The Giants have a decent run defense, so I'm just not a fan of Mike Davis. He's got to prove it to me before I can start playing him again with any confidence, especially against a middle-of-the-road or better defense, which I think is what he's getting this week. I'm also concerned that Patterson is going to start dipping into his shares a little bit and his touches. The final name is Kareem Hunt. Kareem's been really solid to start the year, and he's a guy who I think a lot of people have a lot of confidence in going forward, and they should. Nick Chubb's a very good player, but I think you're going to see that up and down trajectory with Kareem Hunt. So he was RB13 in week 1, RB41 last week against Houston, and really it was just a matter of does he score a touchdown or does he not? Last week he did not, and against Chicago this week, I'm betting that he doesn't. I think he'll finish outside of that RB3, range, which makes him really not a guy you want to play this week. So I'm staying away from Kareem Hunt against a pretty good defense this week against Chicago. Moving on to the wide receiver position, I got a few names that I really like this week at the wide receiver spot, which really I think it's a position that continues to get deeper and deeper. It feels like every single year we play fantasy football. You continue to have names that really emerge. And the first name that I've been really high on him since he entered the league. His team's finally using him the right way. And that's Mike Williams of the Chargers. I think that he is a very, very skilled player. And I also think against good matchups where they're going to have to throw the ball a lot, he's going to be an absolute target hog. And through 2 weeks of the season, he's got 22 targets and 15 receptions for 173 yards and 2 scores. He's currently the wide receiver 5 on the season, and he's going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, who I think the Chargers are going to have to score a lot to stay in this game. I'm expecting huge things from Mike Williams again this week, as he's starting to become a guy that you're going to plug into your lineup no matter what. Now, everyone has concerns because of the injury history and kind of the inconsistent play he's had throughout his career. But what is very clear in this offense is that they are going to find ways to target him. And that was not always the case early in his career. And as long as Herbert is throwing the ball his way, especially 10 or more times, this guy is a surefire wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season. I think he's got upside to be top 20, maybe even top 15 with the way he's playing right now. And I'm thrilled with what I've seen with him. And I think if you have Mike Williams in your leagues, you are very, very happy, especially because you probably didn't spend a lot to get him. The second name is kind of the opposite take. And this is Robert Woods, who has struggled for the Rams. No doubt about it. He has really struggled. He's got 8 receptions for 91 yards and a score. He's currently the wide receiver 41 on the season. That is not the Robert Woods that everyone's used to. That's not the Robert Woods that we all drafted in our leagues. But I think that changes this week. Cooper Kupp looks like the best fit in their new offense with what they're doing with Matthew Stafford. So Kupp's a great player, and I think he's going to continue to really do some things that are kind of thrilling for every fantasy over the owner that really believed in him. Because I think most people took Robert Woods over him, and that hasn't been the case, and I don't think it will be the case season long, but I do think Robert Woods will have a bounce-back week this week against Tampa Bay. I think Stafford's going to have to throw the ball a ton. The Buccaneers have given up some plays in the past game. Dallas put up some huge numbers with Dak Prescott. You saw the Atlanta Falcons, who were pretty much a no-show week one, be able to put up some points, and Matt Ryan have a little bit of success. So I think Stafford's going to air it out. I really like Robert Woods this week. Wide receiver 41 on the year. Don't believe in that. Play him this week. Don't reach into your bench and start getting too cute with it. Play Robert Woods. I think he's going to be really nice this week, and you're going to enjoy having him in your lineup. My start of the week at the wide receiver position, though, is Debo Samuel, the wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers. Honestly, I'm shocked that Brandon Ayuk can't get on the field, can't make an impact. It makes no sense. I feel like there has to be more going on. He's just simply too talented to get the little work that he's been getting so far in the season. But with all those running backs banged up, Elijah Mitchell banged up a little bit. I think he'll play this week, but still didn't look great, and he's banged up. Sermon, concussion protocol. Hasty, out this week. That makes it really tough. You're not going to go in there and hand the ball to Kerryon Johnson 15 times this week, and so therefore, I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to throw the football. And against Green Bay, I think it'll be, a medium scoring game, probably both teams in the 20s. So there'll be room for plays against that Packers secondary. And I think Garoppolo will take advantage a little bit. And Debo is clearly his top option outside of George Kittle. Debo, 282 yards so far this year. He's the wide receiver 3 on the season. Really fascinating stuff going on there, especially because you draft him really late in drafts, and he's really paid off. So Debo is my start of the week this week against the Green Bay Packers. My sits of the week are 2 names that have played well for the most part. Mike Evans wasn't very good week 1, but was terrific last week. 5 receptions for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns. It was a get-right game for Mike Evans. And now this week, it's going to go back to how it was in week 1 against Cowboys. They're taking on the Rams this week, and the Rams have a great secondary, especially Jalen Ramsey. And Jalen Ramsey will be shadowing, I'm sure, Mike Evans. And so, therefore, I am staying away from Mike Evans if I can. I'll play Chris Godwin. I might take a flyer on Antonio Brown in deeper leagues. And then, of course, Gronk, who's played really well to start the year. But Jalen Ramsey gave up over 100 yards to Michael Pittman last week. I don't see that continuing. I think he's going to come in here and really lock down Mike Evans to an extent. And the extent really is most people are starting Mike Evans thinking, 5 for 75 and a score is a pretty good week for him. But I think this week, maybe that touchdown won't be there. And you're only going to get 10 points. And so therefore, he's a sit for me. And I think this week could look more like week 1, which is unfortunate, but it's a really tough matchup. So don't be too sad about it. If you have other options, I would try to play them over Mike Evans this week. Second name is all about situation. So Tyrod Taylor has looked really, really good. And it's honestly shocking. I mean, he's kind of doing a throwback to Virginia Tech days, but he's playing really well for the Texans, but now he's out. He's out with a hamstring injury, probably going to miss at least 2, maybe 4 weeks, maybe even more, depending on the grade of it. And therefore, Brandon Cooks is a guy that I do not want to start this week. Davis Mills is probably going to be the starting quarterback. And that just is a problem, in my opinion. Brandon Cooks, 14 catches for 210 yards and a touchdown. He's been terrific, but I don't like the situation with Mills in there, and therefore I'm staying away from Brandon Cooks this week. Finally, at the tight end position, the guys that I like, Dallas Goedert is the first name to look at. He only had 2 catches for 24 yards last week. I think he gets back on track against a really bad Dallas Cowboys defense. Yes, they looked better last week, but I still am not a believer in what the Cowboys have on the defensive side. And I think Dallas Goedert will have a really, really nice week with Jalen Hurts throwing him the football. And especially if Zach Ertz continues to be out. I think Goedert is a very intriguing option. The other name that I like, and again, these are 2 guys that had bad weeks last week that I expect to rebound, and that's Tyler Higbee against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think Stafford's going to have to throw the football a lot, and therefore I think there's enough to go around. I think Higbee and potentially Woods and Kupp could have really nice weeks, and so Tyler Higbee's a guy that I'm very intrigued starting this week. And you draft him to be a guy that you could start every week. 1 catch for 8 yards, which is what he got last week, I think is going to be an anomaly for the season that he's going to have going forward. But my start of the week, and this is a theme I feel like at the tight end position. It's guys that are kind of struggling to start the year that I think could turn it around. My start of the week is Mark Andrews. He's taking on the Detroit Lions, who seems to be the team that everyone is going to get right against throughout the entire season. Everybody, I think, is going to put up points on the Lions. Mark Andrews had 5 catches for 57 yards last week against the Chiefs. So it was definitely a rebound from week 1, but it still wasn't your expectation for Mark Andrews. I think that changes this week. Again, I think Lamar Jackson was used in the run game more than the Ravens would like going forward, especially in matchups that they don't really need him to run. And therefore, I think you'll see him stand in the pocket, make throws, and I think Mark Andrews is going to have a monster week. So definitely start him against the Detroit Lions this week. My 2 sits of the week, Cole Comet, the Bears tight end versus Cleveland. He was a streaming option last week. He had 1 target. And I'm concerned because I think Andy Dalton with Cole Komet is a much better recipe for success than having Justin Fields as the quarterback. So I'm staying away from Cole Komet. He's got to prove it. I'd be fine if you dropped him this week for some of the better streaming options on the waiver wire. The final name is Logan Thomas, obviously tight end for the Washington football team. He's got 8 catches in 2 games, and he's taking on a defense that looks much improved from a year ago, and that's the Buffalo Bills. Going on the road to Buffalo, tough environment. I just really expect Washington to struggle this week offensively. I know Heineke looked good his first week as a starter, but I think he comes back down to earth. Again, this is a really good defense that they're playing in a really tough environment. And I'm trying to stay away from this offense as much as I can. Obviously, you have to start Gibson and McLaurin, but you don't have to start Logan Thomas, and I probably wouldn't this week as they go to Buffalo. So that's it. Those are the sits and starts of the week for week 3. I hope everyone is able to get a win this week in their fantasy football league and really able to turn the corner a little bit as the season continues to roll on. But this has been Run the League on 365 Sports with Grayson Grunhafer.